بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا. The first of our salawat in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. The second in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. Third, with your loudest voices, in honor of the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. Respected scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Discussion concerning prisoners of war is one of the most intriguing discussions in both Islamic law and Islamic history. How should a prisoner of war, otherwise known as a captive, be treated by Muslims? When we look in the history of humanity, there have been many atrocities that have been committed against captives from the battlefield, against prisoners from different wars. We said that we have to establish an ethic from Karbala where we seek to understand how we approach war, our ethics during war, and our ethics after war. And one of the main areas after war, which humanity only recently sought to readdress, was how do you treat the asir, or the asra, or the usara? Because the word in Arabic for a prisoner of war or a captive is someone who is an asir. Of course, there are other words that may be used. When a person sees in the last 30 years of wars between Muslims and non-Muslims, or between Muslims and fellow Muslims, find that there have been many atrocities and crimes committed against prisoners of war. When you look at Saddam Hussein, for example, the way that he tortured and attacked certain prisoners of war, the videos are still available on YouTube, where you see that during the Iran-Iraq war and in the Gulf War, they would capture a certain number of prisoners and actually humiliate them at the beginning by torturing them, some cases punching them, kicking them, abusing them. All of these later on would come in his court case, when the judge would begin to ask him, that was there no ethics in your concept of how you treat a captive? Someone who is a captive from the battlefield, surely there had to be a bit more restraint in the way that you deal with them. Likewise, when we saw in Bosnia, for example, a number of these prisoners of war who were made to really look anorexic at the end. No food given to them, made to be living in the worst conditions. And many people unfortunately forget about what takes place in places like Bosnia, Iraq, Syria, Yemen. A lot of people remember. Whereas when you talk about Bosnia and Srebrenica and so on, there is very little memory of these, even though a great number of crimes were committed against these prisoners of war. But when ISIS did what they did with the prisoners of war, many people began to readdress this issue. Because ISIS said that we are an Islamic state. We base our decisions from the Quran and from the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. ISIS said that when we take these prisoners of war, or these captives, we can do a number of things with them according to the Quran and according to the Sunnah. Indeed, you find that one of the methodological issues when we are addressing this topic is how binding are the books of history and law on us today. That when I want to learn about how my Prophet treated prisoners of war, I naturally have to go towards the biography of the Prophet. The biography of the Prophet is known in Arabic as seerah. When you want to study the biography, you're studying the seerah of the Prophet. The problem is, who is it that tells me about the Prophet and how he lived? I'm not going to take Anas or Abu Huraira as being binding on me. They may be binding on other schools in Islam, because there is these three with Abdullah bin Umar are the ones who have narrated the most traditions about the life of the Holy Prophet. For me personally, I do not take from them. They're not binding on me. If someone was to come and tell me your worldview of the Holy Prophet and how he treated prisoners of war, who'd you take it from? The reality is that the majority of the traditions that have reached us about our Prophet have come from these personalities. From Aisha, his wife, from Abu Huraira, from Anas bin Malik, from Abdullah, the son of Umar ibn al-Khattab. These people became the principal narrators of how the Prophet lived. So, if they tell me that at Badr the Prophet did this with the prisoners of war, or they tell me he did this with Bani Mustalaq, or they tell me he treated the prisoners of war, for example, from Khaybar in this way, you'll have a lot of Muslims who will take them as binding. I do not take them as binding. As in, with all due respect to the beliefs of other Muslims, in no way whatsoever would I want to base my worldview on any of these. My worldview comes from the family of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. For me personally, that's one methodological issue. A second is that the books of law, are they binding on me or no? Say, for example, the main texts of law that I have within Shi'i thought, for example, Al-Kafi is a mixture of law and theology. But من لا يحضره الفقيه, تهذيب الأحكام, for example, Al-Istibsar. For example, later on, I will take works such as the works of Shaykh al-Tusi, the Hillis, the works of Shahid al-Awwal, Shahid al-Thani, اللمعة الدمشقية, and الروضة البهية في شرح اللمعة. When I'm looking at these works, are all the chapters in these works binding on me? Meaning that anything that's written in a Shi'i legal text, if you look at Islamic legal literature, is Islamic legal literature binding? Meaning that if Shaykh al-Tusi or Allam al-Hilli or Shahid al-Awwal or Shahid al-Thani, in Shi'i literature, we've discussed that Sunni literature is not binding on me. But in Shi'i literature, is every chapter that they've written binding on me? Within or under the minbar are people whose professions are other areas. Therefore, for them, Islam is mainly ethical, spiritual way of life. You don't want to expose these things. But the reality is that when ISIS began to behave like they behaved with prisoners of war, it begged the question, how did Islam reach this level? Further than that, before we go into the analysis about how our Prophet treated prisoners of war, there's another area. Was the Prophet successful with his Islam? Was the Prophet successful in his mission? The reality is that the Prophet offered us two ways by which we live as Muslims. A system known as imama, and a system which later they said the Prophet offered, which was known as khilafah. Both these claim to be the path to who? To the Holy Prophet. In turn, a path to who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How successful was each one? Or is each one? Because when we look at prisoners of war, the litmus test of seeing what we did with prisoners of war was to see which system governed Islam after the Prophet died. Did it do a good job with his ethics or no? Karbala happened exactly 50 years after he died. Within 50 years, either the system of the day of Saqifa or the system of the day of Ghadir is the one that becomes ethical. If the system of the day of Saqifa prevailed, as we know it did prevail, then we need to ask, did that system bring ethics or did it bring Bani Umayyah? Tonight, I'd like to dissect this topic in depth so that we understand the issue of the prisoners of war in Islam and the captives within the religion. And I'd like to do this in the following stages. Number one, which was the first battle where the ethics of how to treat a captive was given to us? Number two, how did the Prophet show mercy towards the opposition captives? And how did he highlight the importance of reading and writing from those prisoners? Number three, can I kill a captive from the opposition? Number four, can I take a woman from the opposition and tell her, you're now my property. I'll do to you what I want to do. Number five, how did Imam Ali show that opposition captives should be all treated with respect and dignity? And in which way did he highlight this issue? Number six, what other areas are there within the ethics of prisoners of law, including not to burn them and not to torture them? And number seven, how did they treat the captives of Al Muhammad in the streets of Kufa and Sham? And how did we prove that 50 years after Rasulullah died, Ghadir was the way forward, not Saqifa? Let me dissect this and dissect the topic in depth. When you come to the ethics of war, you find that naturally the first battle in the religion of Islam was the Battle of Badr. The Battle of Badr was the first battle. Therefore, when I'm building a paradigm on the ethics of prisoners of war, the Battle of Badr, when it ended, Ali ibn Abi Talib had been unbelievable in that battle. At his young age, he was only how old? 24 on that day. He had shown that there will be and never again will there be anyone who was a warrior like him. Because there was only 313 against 950. In the Quran, Allah says in chapter 3, verse 1, 2, 3, لَقَدْ نَصَرَكُمُ اللَّهَ بِبَدْرٍ وَأَنْتُمْ أَذِلَّةٌ. Allah gave you victory, O Muslims, in Badr when you were such a small number. You were only 313. That's why when people ask me, the Imam, when he returns, how is he going to be victorious with 313? We reply by saying, look, there's a precedent in history. Don't you worry. Allah, if He wants to, will send down more soldiers alongside Him. When the battle finished, the Holy Prophet made a clear point. What was it? Now that we have prisoners from the army of Abu Jahl and Utbah bin Rabi'ah, treat the prisoners well. This is a fundamental statement. Because many of these Arabs, in some cases, they weren't used to being cultured in terms of respect. They were still learning, they were growing, they were evolving. Some of them 20 years earlier were burying their daughter alive and smiling. When they were there, you found the Prophet said, any prisoner that we have captured from the opposition, we treat them well. We do not treat them with disrespect. For example, Abu Aziz was the brother of who? Abu Aziz bin Umar was the brother of Mus'ab bin Umar. Mus'ab bin Umar was on the side of the Prophet. His brother was where? On the side of the Quraysh. His brother narrates that I came towards the religion of Islam because of the merciful heart of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He says that when the Prophet announced to his companions, treat them well, these prisoners, many of them were astonished because they thought to themselves, the rumors we've heard about this man is he's going to behead us, he's going to butcher us, he's going to mutilate us. He turned around towards his companions and he said to them that this person over here respect them, look after them. Abu Aziz says, the Muslim soldiers would come next to me. They had dates and they had bread. He said dates was easy for us to get. Every palm tree, you go to Arab countries, there's a palm tree on every corner. Whereas when you come to other countries, you're begging to find one. Allah bless them, they had palm trees everywhere. He said when we had dates and the Muslims had dates, they had bread. He said that their Prophet taught them so well the ethics of treating prisoners that the Prophet said to them, give bread towards the prisoners and you eat the dates. Bread was hard to come by. It wasn't easy to have bread at that time. It wasn't as staple as dates. The Prophet turned around, he said, no, he said, the dates you have, the bread you give to them. Why? Because this akhlaq will bring them back towards the religion of Islam. Isn't that true? As in when I see someone who's a prisoner of war, and I could see that that person's frightened, his friends, his gangs, his mates, all of them are not there alongside him anymore. You know, there are many people out there, when they're alone, he's a chicken. When he has 20 around him, he's brave. You put him alone, he won't say a single word. You put him with his gang, what are you doing? These people were frightened. When they were frightened, the Holy Prophet noticed they were frightened. He said, number one, give them bread while you have the dates. Even if there is this much bread, give it towards them. Number two, when you're taking them back towards Mecca, this is fundamental, let them sit on the camel while you walk on the feet on the floor. Subhanallah. Because you're walking in this environment, it's hot. You've just fought a battle. You may have an ego inside you that says that I deserve to be the one on the camel because the camel was comfortable, saddle, carriage, shade from the sun. He said, no. He said, let's teach the best akhlaq. They sit on the camel while we walk on the ground. That was number two. Number three, he found that some of the Muslims had tied the knot on the wrist of some of the opposition too tight. That when you're going to tie this rope around the wrist, don't tie it in a way where you're going to hurt the wrist of the person. That person is a human being. That person, we want to instill rahmah and mercy. We want to instill dignity. He said to them, go and find out which one of them has got a tight rope around his hand. The moment you see that tight rope, you remove that tight rope from them. Don't let them sleep tonight in pain. Why? His uncle Abbas, you know the Prophet had a number of uncles. Abu Talib, Hamza, Abbas. These uncles of his, each one differed religiously. Abu Lahab, where there was no religion. Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet, was in the army of the Quraysh. The Holy Prophet had known that they had tied his hands. In the middle of the night, the Holy Prophet woke up because he can hear his uncle moaning about the tightness of the rope around his wrist. The Holy Prophet turned around and said, I want you to go, loosen the knot from the wrist of my uncle, and also all the other prisoners as well. Don't let these prisoners ever be prisoners who are whipped, who are slapped, who are with knots of rope around them which are too tight. That was number three. Number four, he made clear an Islamic principle that the ultimate principle of the ethics of war is either to free prisoners or to ransom them for a psalm. Please bear with me on this point, because some people say that the Muslims under the Prophet, when they went to war, their whole aim was what? Was to get captives, either to use them physically, for example in the case of women, or to sell them for a sum. And mind you, this actually happened, because you find that there's an ayah of the Holy Quran which tells the Muslims, your intention in war shouldn't be how much money you make from the prisoners of war. Because prisoners of war have a sum, they have a price. The slave industry works in different ways. The slave industry can work from a battle. The slave industry can become a sex slave industry, where they send girls out to different European countries to prostitute themselves. You found that the Holy Prophet said the niyyah of a person when they're coming to war. What did the Quran say? مَا كَانَ لِنَبِيٍّ. This is a fundamental line. Yes? أَن يَكُونَ لَهُ أَسْرَى حَتَّى يُثْخِنَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. It is not fitting for a prophet to have captives until he is triumphant in the earth. تُرِيدُونَ عَرَضَ الدُّنْيَا وَاللَّهُ يُرِيدُ الْآخِرَةِ وَاللَّهُ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ. You companions, you want dunya. Because these companions were like, how much do you think I can sell that guy for? I can sell this one for 4,000 if you give me 7 for that one. Where's his family? And this is no laughing matter. These are human beings you're dealing with, not animals. With an animal, a person might turn around and say, okay, the animal does not have the conscience of the human being. No, with these are humans. This ayah of the Quran, Surah 8 verse 67, set a principle, which was what? Which was, there's some of you companions who've come with me to Badr. Your intention, تُرِيدُونَ عَرَضَ الدُّنْيَا وَاللَّهُ يُرِيدُ الْآخِرَةِ. You have come here looking for the paltry dunya of this world. Your intention when you've come here is that, not like Ali. Ali has come here with full sincerity, that he fights purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ali ibn Abi Talib was not interested in, if I capture this person, I'll sell him for 4,000, or I'll release him for 10,000. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen wasn't interested. Others, no, they were interested. The ayah says it's not fitting for the prophet, it's not fitting for a prophet to take captives until a war has finished. You guys keep asking, how much can we sell? How much can we give? You guys want dunya from this war? Is that all you're interested in? You've come to war. And it showed at Uhud, by the way. When the Prophet, they left him alone in the mountain, what did they run to the battlefield for? So they collect the treasures of the battlefield. What was the niyyah? Ali, son of Abu Talib, giving his soul away for the religion of Islam on the mountain. These people running after the booty of war, later on, they are equal to Ali in sincerity. Not just equal, ahead of him. Ali eventually becomes which number? Number 4. What a religion made Ali ibn Abi Talib number 4. Wallahi al-Azim, I tell you. If Ali ibn Abi Talib belonged to any other religion, they would make him number 1. It's only us with our stupid history that makes him number 4. Only us. The others would have made him number 1. A colossal figure like that. The Quran made it clear that you companions, when you come here, for the first principle, that prisoner, if they can afford to free themselves, let them free themselves. Don't keep them with you. We Muslims are not here to keep prisoners. You want to free yourself? How much? 4,000? Go ahead. You have your tribe. They're rich enough. Go back. Why didn't the Prophet just come and slay them? Why didn't the Prophet just come and behead all of these prisoners? Because the rumor about him being a man of shaitan would have been proved. But what did the Prophet show? He said, no, we are not going to do that. Ask your tribe, how much is it that the tribe wants? No problem. Let them go. Someone came to him. What was his name? This person who came to him by the name of Abu Izz al-Jammahi, he said, oh, messenger of God. He blatantly said to him that I fought you and you're now saying that you'll free people, but there has to be a ransom. I'm poor and I've got 4 daughters. I cannot afford, and they cannot afford, to pay you to ransom me. The Prophet looked at him. He said, will you ever help the enemies of ours again or no? He said, I will never help any enemy of yours again. He said, then you are free, go. Yes. Because the Quran made it clear in Surah 47 verse 4, فَإِمَّا مَنًّا بَعْدُ وَإِمَّا فِدَاءً. Either you free someone or you ransom them. Someone else came. He said, we can't afford to ransom ourselves. What can we do for you to free us? O mercy of God to mankind. He said, how many of you know how to read and write? They said, I know, he knows. I know. Because Mecca, there were people who could read and write. Medina, no. How many of you could read and write? Said us. Said, very well. If you teach 10 of our youths how to read and write, All of you go back to your families, even though you've put a sword against me at Badr, go home, it's okay. Allahu Akbar. All they had to do was teach them, because the Prophet didn't want a nation purely built on emotion. He wanted intellect with emotion. He wanted a community of iqra, not la naqra. A community that reads. Wallah, today when I see our youth, many of them I see doing wonderful work, reading, studying, learning about Ahlul Bayt. You can tell in their question answer session. Then I see others, he's sitting the whole day on the WhatsApp and these games they play. What's the latest games out right now where the fruits keep falling down? You are from the heritage of Al Muhammad. You are from Baqir al-Ulum, Ja'far al-Sadiq. You are from the heritage. Look how the Prophet is saying that person who came to this battle to kill me, as long as he brings literacy into the ummah, let them go home. Look at that. Because literacy was the main thing. How much you read, how much you write was the symbol of your Islam, not how much sujood marks you have on your head. There are so many in our community. Wallah, you see him salah, Saum, Hajj, Ziyarah. Ask him in the last year, how many books have you downloaded on your phone about Ahlul Bayt? And there'll be many who'll turn around and say, not one book about Ahlul Bayt have I downloaded. Ask them, how many of these games have you downloaded? Wallah, he'll give you tafsir of the game. He'll say to this what you do, and he'll give you this game. And at home, now, Habibi, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have these games, but have a balance. The Holy Prophet turned around. He said, teach 10 of our youths how to read and write. That's all. That's all? So that's all. He said, so you're telling us that we who have come to kill you, you've caught us, you've released the rope from our hands. None of you have even slapped us. None of you have even kicked us. None of you have even got your swords and hit us. And now, the bread you have, you give to us. The bed you have, you give to us. The camel you have, subhanallah, and I want you to focus on this line. The camel, saddled camel, you allow us to ride, O Muhammad. He said to them, but I have just been sent as a rahmah to mankind. I've been sent as a mercy to mankind. I've not been sent to cause trouble between you. On the contrary, and that's how many came towards the religion of Islam. Because you found, if you look at the schools of Islam, are you allowed to kill a prisoner of war or no? You find the likes of, for example, Alam al-Halli and others make it clear, ransom is allowed. You can ransom them. If there is someone who wants to, for example, have their tribe pay for them, you take that payment, they can go. If you want to free them from your own prerogative, you can free them to go back home. Or, for example, they may be enslaved. If they are to be enslaved, here's a key area. Because what did ISIS do with the slaves? You find that Alam al-Hali says that you cannot kill those prisoners of war, enslave them. You're allowed to ransom them, you're allowed to free them. But ISIS showed what? That you can also enslave the girl and do what you want with her. Until today, you have in our communities, people ask, this idea that you can have a sex slave or a slave girl from war who becomes your booty, your property, your possession, is this something allowed in Islam or is it not allowed? You find that some people will say, look, in the Quran, it says milk al-yamin, ma malakat aymanum. First and foremost, the Quran makes it clear, as we mentioned earlier, the principal ayah, which was what? فَإِمَّا مَنًّا بَعْدُ وَإِمَّا فِدَى. Quran said that the principle is either you ransom or you free. When that girl comes to you, try and ransom her. If you can't ransom her, free her. Someone says, and if I can't free her, how about this idea that I can just have her like that? Question, if she's a mushrik girl, and most of the battles of the Prophet are against mushrik, I ask you, in Islam, can a Muslim marry a mushrika? I ask you. In Islam, a Muslim man can marry a Muslim, a Christian, or Jewish. Do we agree? Muslim woman cannot marry except a Muslim man. When it comes to that Muslim man, are they allowed to marry mushrik? In our legal system, for example, is a Muslim man allowed to marry? And I say this with the utmost respect, no offense meant to these religions, because I have seen a lot of good from these religions. But I'm just talking the laws. Can a Muslim man marry a Hindu? No. Can a Muslim man marry a Sikh? No. Can a Muslim man marry a Buddhist? No. Can a Muslim man marry atheist? No. If I'm taking this slave girl on the idea that because she's my property from war, then I'm allowed to sleep with her automatically, no nikah. What if she's a mushrikah? Because when you're fighting the battle of Badr, who's fighting you? Christians? Uhud, Christians? Khandaq, Christians? Khaybar, someone will say Khaybar, Jewish. Okay. With the law, say for example, from the opposition of the Jewish, there was a girl that was caught. Who is the one who administers what happens here? Firstly, if her tribe, the Jews of Khaybar, come to the Prophet and they say that we want her back, he'll give her back. If not, he'll say to them there's a certain payment, a ransom. If not, then after that maybe she wants to become a Muslim because of the akhlaq of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Someone says, how? The Prophet had a number of wives. Khadija, who he married for 26 years, never shared her with any other wife. You know, when people tell you Muhammad had 9 wives, say, who are the 9? Say Khadija. Khadija's the only wife he never had another wife with. He was married to her from the age of 25 till the age of 51. 26-year marriage. He never married anyone when he was with her, even though Allah gave him the right to marry somebody else. He also married, for example, Salama. He married Zainab, his cousin. He married Aisha, daughter of Abu Bakr, Hafsa, daughter of Umar. And he also married one particular lady by the name of Juwayriyah, the daughter of Harith, the head of Bani Mustalaq. Bani Mustalaq, enemies of Islam. They tried to fight the Prophet. The Prophet defeated them in war. Harith, the head of Bani Mustalaq, his daughter Juwayriyah was captured. When she was captured, her husband, Mustafa, the son of Safwan, if I'm not mistaken, it will come back to me. Mustafa, son of Safwan, died. When she was captured, Thabit bin Qais, she came up to him. She said to him, look, you've captured me. I'm the daughter of Harith, the son, the leader of Bani Mustalaq. Allow me to ransom myself. How much is it? The Prophet, she had seen, had told his companions, don't put a tight rope on her. No one slap any of the woman. No one hurt any of the woman. Please look after them gently. She couldn't believe his akhlaq. She saw him, he saw her. He said to her, I want to ask you something. You want to ransom yourself? You're more than welcome. But how about if I propose to you in marriage, having seen your decency on this battlefield, if I was to propose to you, you will be free in marriage if you want to come towards the religion of Islam. And she, knowing her dad's tribe were powerful, she still said, it is an honor for me to convert to this religion. He married her. Now question, if you marry her, why did he need to marry her? He could have easily said to her, you're my slave, you're my property. I don't need to marry you. I don't need a nikah. Someone says, but in our books it says that if you have this slave girl from war, for example, or the Quran says, milk al-yamin. If the Quran says the right hand possession, then you find that when it comes to this possession of the Quran, there still has to be, number one, the authority of the ma'soom in overlooking these things. Notice, of our imams, 11 of them did not rule a government. Only one. Most of the discussions about slaves and about prisoners of war came from other schools in Islam. The imams might reply polemically. Number two, if we have these traditions, we have many Sunni traditions that have come into Shia books. Someone says, but it's our books. If it's in our books, that chapter, take it and throw it away. Throw it away. Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, Ayatollah Muhammad, may Allah bless his soul, used to say, even in the times of the Imams, they used to make fake hadiths and attribute them to Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq. Believe you me, I ask you sometimes when you read a hadith, it says Imam al-Sadiq says, you can sleep with a girl, no nikah. The Quran says, وَأَنْكِحُ الْأَيَامَ مِنْكُمْ وَالصَّالِحِينَ مِنْ عِبَادِكُمْ وَإِمَائِكُمْ إِن يَكُونُوا فُقَرَاءَ يُغْنِهِمُ اللَّهُ فَضْلَهُ. Quran says, marry those from you, the free ones and the slaves. If they are poor, Allah will make them rich. Yeah, the Quran says. And someone says, but Imam al-Sadiq said, you get a slave girl, just enjoy her, and if you want, pass her on to others, and so on. Tell me, that's Imam al-Sadiq? Tell me. Because even in our literature, there are areas which have got nothing to do with Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And our aql, objective moral values we have in usul al-fiqh, mustaqillat aqliya, I can tell the difference between al-hasan wal-qabih. I can tell when something is immoral. You find me a non-Muslim today, and when you find that non-Muslim today, you ask them, you say to them, telling the truth is good? And they say to you, yes. You say telling a lie is bad? They say to you, yes. They're non-Muslim, but there are objective moral values. When I'm looking therefore at someone, who is that person who says that you can have a prisoner of war and have sex with her? When you look at that person, that is not from the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. Ahlul Bayt made it clear, because the Holy Prophet made it clear that you treat the prisoners of war with what? With dignity. If there's a nikah to be done. Someone says, but she was married, this Juwayriyah. Can you just marry her and sleep with her? Her husband has just died. No, there is still an iddah even for example, those who have just been left their husband, there's still an iddah, which Khalid ibn al-Walid clearly did not show with Malik ibn Nuwayra's wife. Anyway, coming back therefore, someone asks, so what did Ahlul Bayt highlight? Ahlul Bayt highlighted prisoners of war. Even if they've launched an army against you, remain ethical with them. Likewise with others, the Imam wants to make clear. Marwan, Abdullah ibn Zubair, they were also captives from a battle. While they were captives from that battle, the Imam said, don't hurt any of them, don't insult. At Siffin, same thing. If there are captives, don't. Nahrawan, animals, Khawarij, who were there, and still he made the point still clear. Why? Because Ahlul Bayt wanted to highlight the asir, that captive, don't treat him as an animal, treat him as a human. And one famous ayah in the Quran, Allah revealed in honor of the way they treated the captive. Because Imam al-Hasan and Imam al-Hussein were not feeling well. Rasulullah said to Fatima Zahra and Imam Ali, he said, how's everything? He said, not good. What is it? Hassan and Hussein are not feeling well. He said, very well. Make a nidhr. Make a mannat. People ask me, nidhr is allowed in Islam? A vow, a mannat, is that allowed? Yes. Make a vow. If anything's wrong in your life, say, Ya Allah, if you help me, then Ya Allah, I will ensure that something is fulfilled. They made a vow. What was the vow? The vow was that, Ya Allah, if you cure Hassan and Hussein, we will fast for 3 days. For 3 days, we will fast. The moment Imam Hassan and Hussein were feeling better, they had to fulfill the vow. On the first day, as they're about to break their iftar, what happened? Someone knocks at the door. I am a miskeen. I'm someone needy. I beg you, Al Muhammad, help me. They straight away, the iftar they were about to have, they gave to that miskeen. The next day, someone knocked at the doors, they're breaking their fast. What is it? Said, I am yateem. I'm an orphan. I beg you, Al Muhammad. And they gave everything they had, even though it was time to break their fast. On the third day, this is my point. A captive who was a non-Muslim, but he was a captive. He was there within the Islamic State. He came and knocked at the door. Al Muhammad, I am asir. The others were miskeen, yateem, and asir. I am an asir. I have no food. straight away Al Muhammad showed the ethics of how you treat the asir. That person who has come from a war, don't leave them in a position which is difficult for them. They've just come out of a battle. So then the Quran revealed an ayah in their honor. Surah 76, verse number 8. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. They give their food out of love to the needy, to the poor, and towards the needy, the orphan, and the captive. إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ. We give for the purity and the sake of Allah. لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكْرًا. We don't want from you any gift. We don't want any reward. Rather, we are setting the principles in this ummah. The principles of Al Muhammad were what? If ever there's a war, and there's an ethical base to that war, and there are prisoners, look after those prisoners. Treat them well. Honor them. Don't disrespect them. I ask everyone who believes in that system, I ask everybody, that system, 50 years after the Prophet dies, that system, did it protect us from slapping Sukayna bint al-Hussein? How much her grandfather had said, that look after the children in war, don't torture them, the prisoners of war, don't burn anything. And they burnt the dress of the granddaughters of Rasulullah. Not just that. You know, Imam al-Baqir has a hadith, it sends chills in you when you hear it. He says, tell people about Karbala, but we don't tell you everything about Karbala, out of fear that our Shia might die if they heard. Allahu Akbar. I tell him, oh Imam, what I know, I feel like dying. So what else is out there? Imam, before he went to fight that final time, the Imam himself said to Sukayna and to Sayyidah Zainab and to the rest, he said, do not worry. Allah will protect you. Allah will assist you. Allah will look after you. Allah will help you get back to Medina safely. That promise was fulfilled. But he never said to them that you will not be tortured. And nor did he say to them, you will not be abused by emotional slander. And nor did he say to them that our heads will be on spears in front of you, with Ibn Ziyad poking my lips in front of my daughter. If ever any of the sisters feel that sometimes in life being religious is a struggle, remember the prisoners of Al Muhammad and Ali. The narrations, I tell you, we continue the Majlis until tomorrow, but if we continued until Arba'een, I tell you the way they slapped Zainab in Mosul, for example. And the way they kicked Kulthum on the streets of Kufa. Their granddad had come and said that treat the prisoner of war, the captive, with ethics. Imam, our fourth Imam, says in Sham, in the Darbar, in the Bazaar of Yazid, he said, when we were walking through, there's something I'll never forget, and it started at Karbala, ended in Sham. He said, we had chains on our necks. The Prophet had said that the rope, if it's tight, don't let a rope be tight on another human being. Imam Zain al-Abidin, Sahal bin Sa'ad al-Sa'adi saw him. He said to him, O Zain al-Abidin, O Ali ibn al-Hussein, I was with your granddad, Rasulullah. What's happening? He said, Sahal, can you get me a piece of cloth? He said, what is it? He bought the cloth. Sahal said, I didn't know why he wanted a cloth. He said he placed the cloth between his neck and the chain. He said, oh Sahal, since Karbala, that chain has ripped my neck. Tonight, this is for all of you, my dear brothers and sisters. This is for you with the hajat, broken hearts. Imam al-Baqir says, when Imam Zain al-Abidin was dying, the poison was all over his body. He said, I saw my dad in pain. This was years after Karbala. He said, I saw my dad in pain. He said, when you see your dad in pain, the first thing you want to do is come and hug him. He said, the moment I hugged my dad, I saw him cry in a way I've never seen him cry. Karbala was 34 years before. He said, I hugged my dad in a way, and he started crying. I said to him, Dad, why'd you cry? In a moment you'll see Rasulullah. In a moment you'll see Fatima al-Zahra. In a moment you'll see Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. In a moment you'll see Imam al-Hassan. In a moment you'll see Imam al-Hussein. He said, my son, he looked at me, he said, my son Muhammad, I cry because when I'm dying, you're on my chest. Whereas do you know who sat on the chest of my father? Then he says, I came to wash my father's body. I saw 2 marks on the body. I'm showing you what Al Muhammad went through. أصيب أهلك كالعبيد. I'm showing you what Al Muhammad went through. In Ziyarat al-Nahiya we say, Ya Rasulullah, your family were made slaves after you. Imam al-Baqir says, I saw 2 marks on my father Zayn al-Abidin's body. One of them I knew. The other broke me. He said, the one I knew was that he had carried food for the poor every night. It's a heavy bag, so he had bruising on his shoulder. He said, that I knew. But the marks of the chain of Sham, I didn't see it. He said 30 years after Sham, the bruising was still there. Imagine. They took the prisoners of Al Muhammad, they slapped them. Imam Zayn al-Abidin said, I saw something I'll never forget. We walked through the bazaar in Sham, a man shouted, these are the daughters of the man who defeated you at Khandaq and Khaybar. He said, at that moment I saw a man with a spear poke the waist of Zainab. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Those of you who have a mannat, you want to go to Sham, while with your tears, he said they poked my auntie Zainab in her waist. A man like Yazid, who has the audacity to flick the lips of the grandson of Rasulullah, you think he wouldn't order people to poke Zainab's waist? This is a night for all of us today. All of us want to let our tears out tonight, my dear brothers and sisters. Then he says, as I was walking, someone poured boiling hot water on my turban. Allahu Akbar. This is what Islam became. The grandchildren of the message, the grandchildren of revelation have boiling water on them. But he says, I wish you had seen how Sukaina was hit. In Kufa, not just they hit, they ripped her earrings from her ear. Allahu Akbar. He said, I saw them throwing things at her. And even when they threw good things, we looked and we said, As'al Muhammad, do not accept sadaqah. Zayd bin Arqam says, I saw something, and I'm a companion of Rasulullah. He was living in Kufa at the time of Karbala. He said, I saw heads on spears, and I saw children chained to each other. Look what Islam became after Rasulullah died. He said, but worse than it, I saw Hussein ibn Ali's holy face on a spear, and his young daughter behind that face, and his wives and his sisters. He said, I came near the head of Hussein, and I heard a whisper from the lips, and the whisper said, if you think companions of the cave are a sign of Allah. He said, when I heard that whisper, I said, Aba Abdullah, you're a greater sign than them. Imagine. That Zayd narrates that it was difficult for a few of these women after Karbala. Tonight, all of you remember that for these women, they were prisoners in Kufa. Do you know where they put Zainab tonight? They put her next to the sheep and the camels tonight. Zainab, daughter of Rasulullah, granddaughter of Rasulullah, daughter of Fatima. On a night like this, they left her in the ruins of camels and sheep. Allahu Akbar. Oh Prophet of Allah, I wish you came to Kufa tonight. Because they left Kufa on the 11th, Karbala on the 11th of Muharram, 12th of Muharram there in Kufa, yes? The narrations, what do they mention? They mention that these women, while they were walking, men were looking at them, men were staring at them. Zainab is not used to men staring at her. Zainab's hijab was now being taken. She's not used to this. And then there were also messages from those who had passed away. And then there were messages from those who were wives of those who passed away at Karbala but couldn't make it to Karbala. Of those messages was whose? Of those messages was the message of Hur bin Yazid al-Riyahi's wife when she came towards the companions. Hur bin Yazid al-Riyahi's wife was not at Karbala, but she missed her husband. She knew her husband had changed, but she wanted to come because she knew that they were thirsty from Karbala. When Hur bin Yazid al-Riyahi's wife came towards the prisoners, she called out that I have some water for some of you. The moment she said, I have some water for some of you, Sukaina put her head up and looked towards her. And then she called out, when you offer me water, offer my father Abu Abdullah before you offer me something to drink. And when I hear water, I ask you, where is Abul Fadl al-Abbas? He promised me water and never came back. And if you're about to give me some water, then give the 6-month-old baby before you give me, because he died thirsty. This narration also mentions there was other ladies who came. Who else came? A lady by the name of Taw'a. She was the last to see Muslim bin Aqil. Muslim had told her that make sure one day when my daughter Hamida comes, make sure you come to her. Taw'a came towards Hamida. She said to her, I saw your father Muslim before he died. I want to tell you about what happened to him. Hamida looked towards her. She said, when he fell from the castle, did anyone hold his body on the ground? Allahu Akbar. And then further than that, there were other ladies. Their beautiful boys were in front of them. One of them was who? Layla, the mother of Ali al-Akbar. Because one of the ladies walked past the heads. She said, I feel sorry for the mum of that face, because he is a beautiful boy. He is the most radiant face. I hope his mother was not at Karbala. She looked towards her. She said, I wish you had seen my boy on the battlefield. But then I wish you had seen the way the horses cut open his body. For all of them, it was difficult. But for Zainab alayhi salam, Ayatollah Sibawayh one day was asked that, Maulana, all your life you have never done Masa'ib al-Hussein. Because he was a marja, he does not do Masa'ib, it wasn't part of his life. He said to them, no, leave the Masa'ib for those who recite about Hussein, they are better than me. They said to him, Maulana, I beg you, just one musibah. He said, no, please. They said to him, Maulana, just one. He said, you want to know what's the biggest musibah? And they said to him, yes. He said, Zainab entering the court of Ibn Ziyad without Abbas and without Hussein. Allahu Akbar, what a musibah. Zainab has no Abbas, no Hussein. What did they do to her? They whipped her in the court. They kicked her in the court. They slapped her in the court. And all that time she calls out, where's my father Amir al-Mu'mineen to be here for me?